Good evening, everybody. We can go ahead and call this meeting to order, our school committee meeting for August 23rd, 2023, 7:03 p.m. And
recording in progress.
It's very exciting because it's our first official school committee meeting for the new 2023-2024 school year. So before we dive in, we will stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So first on the agenda tonight is just approving our agenda. Does anybody have any changes? Oh, sure. Introductions, I did mention it's our first official meeting and we're about to hand it over to our new superintendent, but before we do that, we can just go around and introduce ourselves. So for those who don't know me, I don't know where the camera is. I don't know where I'm looking. I am Lizzie Carroll, Dr. Elizabeth Carroll, the chair of the school committee this year, and I should also say just excited to be able to launch our hybrid meetings, and we're having our meetings hopefully as much as possible this year in this space so that we're able to be with members of our community who are joining us virtually. So pass it this way.
Great. Of course, and press the button. Anna Varghese, school committee member. It is my second school year with the committee. Excited for Dr. Burrows, our new superintendent, and my fellow committee members, and Dr. Pavlicek and Dr. McKinney as well. So excited for this year and excited to be working together.
And about you, I just a newly elected member. I have two children attending Cunningham School right now. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to serve the town and to work with everyone right here.
Garth McKinney, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Human Resources, going into my second year.
Len Pavlicek, Assistant Superintendent for, Finance and Operations now. Going into, I don't know how many years.
Second in a row, 1.5.
Peter Burrows, Superintendent, going into year one. Really excited to be here. And this feels like the first official meeting, even though I attended one other meeting already. I've already learned a lot about Milton, excited to learn so much more this year and years to come, and a lot of great work ahead.
Mark Loring, first year school committee member, along with member Chu, and 2 kids also at Cunningham, so very excited for the year.
And we have 2 members who aren't able to be here with us tonight, Beverly Ross Denny and our vice chair, Dr. Selena Miranda. So the 4 of us represent a quorum of the school committee. We're proceeding with our meeting. And the next item on our agenda is to hear from you, Dr. Burrows. I know you have a number of things to update us on as the school year approaches.
Yeah, it's very close. So summer, as you know, seems like it's really long, and then all of a sudden you realize opening day is next week, and that's where we are right now. So we are in kind of the final week of preparing for both all staff to come back on Monday and students coming back on either Wednesday, or pre-K and K are coming back on Tuesday after Labor Day. So we are in the final leg here. We've had a really busy hiring season over the summer. Things look really good on that front. We have a few open positions, a few last-minute resignations that we're working through, but we feel pretty confident that we'll be able to fill those, and are feeling like we are in a good place in terms of staffing, which I think hasn't been the case in the last number of years. We welcomed our new teachers this week. We had around 40 new teachers. That number was down from previous year, which was around 60 or so. A really great group. We all got to present to them and welcome them to Milton. They seemed like they brought a lot of experience. It wasn't, 35 first-year teachers and a few teachers with experience. It seemed like people came from really kind of different backgrounds and experiences. So that was kind of neat to spend time with them. And they've spent the last 3 days getting ready and getting training and working together. Since we met last, we've had a few retreats. So we had on August 7th and 8th, we had a leadership retreat with the central office leadership team and the principals. We spent 2 days, 1 day at Fuller and 1 day at Curry. And that was a real opportunity to bring everybody together and start to really kind of build coherence around how we're going to invest in the year, and especially this year during my first year and the entry planning process and all of the work that's underway. There's a lot of organization that we're working on to, in some ways, slow the wheels down a little bit and get everybody on the same page. And I think that's something, as I would reflect on as I'm working with all the different constituents in Milton, that I'm doing is, especially in this first period, is listening and learning and understanding where things are, but also helping other people to see where we are. And throughout that retreat, and we had a curriculum leadership team, that's the full leadership team of that group that I just mentioned, plus all of our directors, many of whom come and present to you over the course of the year. That retreat was this week as well. And I think everyone is really, really excited to get on a strong foundation and start to build forward together. And that's one of the things that I'll be talking about a lot this year. We've got a slogan for our opening day, Together United. And it definitely rang true of all the leadership in these retreats, was the desire to kind of stop moving in so many different directions and really kind of take a pause and then commit to the work that we know is going to be meaningful and impactful. It was really neat in our retreat this week with the curriculum leadership team, and that's about 30 people. At the end, we spent a whole day kind of looking at the systems that are currently in place, analyzing them, talking about where things were working, where we needed to spend more time. And then they created action steps at the end, and there were 5 different groups that did that. And it was really interesting that at the end of that process, all 5 groups, I mean, I think you two could speak to this probably as well, that they were very aligned in terms of the things that they wanted to see us doing as a full leadership team over the course of the year. And they were around systems, around communication, clarity. And so those are the things that it's exciting to see people both really wanting to do that work and willing to do it, and also having their perspectives be so aligned. So that was really heartening. We've had a number of, in terms of our schools, we've had a lot of events and socials and things like that. And some of you may have been a part of some of those at your respective schools. I know you were all connected to a school or schools. Pierce had I think it was a 3-day summer camp for 6th graders. There were events happening at other elementary schools with like popsicles and all those kinds of things. So all the different communities are starting to reach out and invite people into schools and get the kind of energy going for the kickoff. The opening day event is coming up on Monday, and you all are invited and encouraged to attend. It's going to be different than it has been in years past, where we're going to actually have a presentation. I'll be giving a speech. Lizzie will be speaking. Ready? And we'll be hearing from the association, and Garth will be introducing our new teachers, and then and new staff, and then we're going to be going outside, weather willing, and we're going to have a kind of a community building event. And we've got a tent. It's on the way.
Should be here Thursday or Friday.
Okay. So the goal really of this opening day is to bring people together, get people excited, and it's an opportunity for me to speak to some of the things that I'm talking about tonight in terms of the kinds of things I'm seeing, and also help people understand, kind of where we'll be putting our energy and our intention over the course of this year. So I'm very, very much looking forward to Monday. In terms of my listening and learning plan, the forums, I don't have dates yet for them. We're finalizing a few of the dates for schools, but I'm going to be doing an event at every school as part of that listening and learning tour. I'll also be working on, or sending out, I've already worked on a survey to collect information from the community. One of the things that's going to be important with that end of that phase one on the entry plan is helping the community see and understand where we are. So this is helping me in terms of understanding, all the different stakeholders that are part of our schools, but I think it's also important for the community to see. And one of the things, as I've been working on my speech for Monday, one of the things that I'm going to talk about a little bit is the importance of our community being together and working together for the improvement of all students' outcomes. So I think we have a unique opportunity right now to do that. You heard some new titles. So we got rid of 4, which never sounded right to me. Makes more sense. So the new title, Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations. His former title was For Business Affairs.
As opposed to against business.
Right. And then Garth has an of instead of a for. So his isn't as dramatic. And the other big change is Director of Student Services instead of Pupil Personnel Services. And she was very happy about that. So we're updating all of our documentation to reflect that. And that is one of the things that I've been doing this summer, is just kind of looking at different systems and talking through that and figuring out how we can make things make a little bit more sense. We have spent time as a central office leadership team talking a lot about the different roles and responsibilities of each position and how to create real role clarity. One of the things people have shared is that sometimes they don't know who to go to for different things, and when everybody carries the same expertise, sometimes they might go to Glenn for something and then come to me for the same thing. But if we're not connected and knowing the answers we're giving other people, then all of a sudden we've got like a bit of a chaos. So that's something that we are working on, is doing that work with the leadership team, with that curriculum leadership team, and then more broadly to help support everyone in doing the work. We have, this week we rolled out Power School. We had a few issues. You may have gotten an email that just updated the community in terms of some people may have not received something, or there were a few kinks in the Power School software, and we believe those are fully fixed. This is real wood, so so we're working through that. It is a great move going from the software program we had before Rediker to Power School. Power School is the gold standard across the country, and probably holds a monopoly on student information systems. But it's a good product. We also are working through bus transportation. Glenn has been heading that up and doing a great job. We have a waiting list, and I think we usually have a waiting list, right? So that's
For a few years.
okay. So we don't have enough spaces on buses for all. So all elementary school students receive automatically receive a seat. And is that within range of?
Well, actually, all who were eligible received a bus pass, and anyone who wanted one at the elementary school got a bus pass. We had enough seats on the buses to accommodate all elementary school students who requested. Our issue is at the middle and high school buses, which have less seating capacity because the students are bigger. And we do have waiting lists on some of the high school, middle school buses. So that's what we're working through right now. Those are the situations where we look at ridership for the first couple of weeks. A lot of parents sign their kids up for those buses, but they're playing football or they're in the band after school. There's normally we're running it 2 days a week and so forth. So until we get a decent look at the ridership over the first week to two of those buses, we'll add some people off waiting lists and so forth. We're hopeful that we'll get a lot of those people off waiting lists. A couple places are a little tricky.
But I think one of the things we're seeing is that the other thing I was going to mention, along with transportation, is the Milton Community Schools and the early and after school. So I did check in with the director, Martha, and just even total capacity, we've increased capacity for after school by 10 to 20 at each of the four elementary schools, doubled the size of the before school, the ESAP program. But we have, I think, more interest, and so our current wait list is around roughly 25 or so at each elementary school. She is at capacity currently at Collycott and Cunningham in terms of the space and number of staff. So that's something that I think as we plan forward going to next year, and one of the things that came up, I think that maybe was talked about at the school committee, was a lottery process for it was a first come first serve at a certain time to sign up, and she's mentioned moving to, and we discussed it together, moving to a lottery system, which makes more sense, so that people have a window to apply and then there's a lottery to be selected. One thing we could do in looking ahead to is what are the potentials to expand the program to need. But my understanding, and Glenn, I don't know if you know the numbers, but there has been a wait list similar to transportation for community schools in the past.
It really kicked up after COVID.
Okay.
It was with the reorganization of the program. Many years ago, it used to be you could sign up for 2 days and you're not the other 3, or you're only 2 hours, or this or that. But once we sort of standardized the program and came back from COVID, there was a lot more demand for it. And so that's what we're seeing.
That's a question. So you said about 25 kids per site, right, are on the waiting list? The 25 families or 25 kids?
I think it's kids, yeah.
Okay, so approximately. And given that it is mostly like it's a self-funded program, right? The restriction there is it more physical space, or I think we've talked about previous years it was like more staffing, their ability to like hire the extra staff that would be required to service those extra 25 kids? Do we know?
I mean, I think you might know better than I do.
They've hired more staff. It is hard to hire staff. I mean, they tried contracting with different groups to do some things over the last year,
Yep.
with some success and some not success in terms of the programs. I think what Martha was concerned about too is the ability to supervise the amount of staff that actually she has now between the high school students and the teaching staff at that. So bringing it up further would also probably involve more oversight. You need an assistant director. Do you need more? higher levels of supervision and so forth. I think she feels right now with the supervisory staff she has, she's probably at the limits of her ability to supervise the number of staff they have. But, you know, it's an administrative style reorganization we would have to look at to see if we could increase capacity that way.
You mentioned about how before COVID, this community school had been running quite successfully, but like after COVID, we have a higher demand. Also have to do with how we have changed the 2-day or 3-day, 4-day flexibility to nowadays a 5-day requirement. Is it a possibility that we can go back to the 2, 3, 4, 5-day flexible schedule? In that case, it might be able to allocate some staff based on how many students are enrolled in each day.
It actually made it harder to get staff because you would, not only was it 2, 3, or 4, 5 days, but it was 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours.
Or maybe we get rid of the hours.
Figuring out how many staff you needed at any particular hour at any particular day. I mean, you conceivably needed 15 different levels of staff for 3 different hours, 5 different days, and it was much more difficult to get staff because some staff were only going to be in 2 days a week or something like that.
Yeah.
So it made it more difficult to schedule. It made it more difficult to staff, which is why it went to the other system. Of basically 5 days, and then the full day again had to do with the staffing.
Yeah.
Can you hire some people for only 2 hours, or can you have other people for 3 hours in the afternoon? And it was just a difficult situation to hire into.
I understand how difficult that would be, and I also talking about not the hourly. I'm talking about just probably require the family to sign up for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, or 5 days, and choose which day they would need the service. So the staff who can also choose which day that they wanted to come into work. So in that way, we could probably say that, oh, maybe Wednesday is the day that we have the most students. We all obviously have to have a cap on how many students will be there because of the space issue, right? So in that way, at least we know that maybe we have 100 students wanted to come in on Wednesday, then we need 7 staff. Then in that way, we can probably able to hire staff easier also by saying that, oh, who might be willing to work on Wednesdays? It's just a
Many of the
suggestion.
staff are not our day staff.
Yeah.
They come in just for after school and things like that. So in a sense, they're trying to get hours, a lot of them, and doing less than 5 days is sometimes less attractive than a 5-day schedule for them if they're only working 3 hours a day. It's hard. I mean, it runs both ways, and I know Martha looked into this when she changed the model 5 years ago or so. I mean, certainly you can look at it, but it's difficult one way or the other to figure out how to get the staffing in there.
Well, I definitely appreciate your bringing the update, and I mean, having read through the minutes from our June meeting, actually, I remembered that we left off in June wondering about this because the enrollment registration thing had just happened. So I think, it's possible. I guess I will keep my fingers crossed that something similar happens with the buses in the first couple weeks, that it settles in a little bit and people, I mean, I know that they track attendance, and if you're not fully utilizing the program, then I know they may try to offer your spot to someone who really needs to be using it, who's on the wait list. So it's good to sort of know that they were able to increase capacity, because I know that was something that had been planned for and budgeted for with the increase in fees. So that's good to know. And maybe if this is just something that we could sort of have another update on as we go forward to just understand how it's settling in as the year goes on. And I appreciate your point that there are many things obviously we can continue to improve, and this just may be one of them that we can think about towards next year. I think how you framed the ideas about registration, that some simple changes like you named would on their own like already probably make the program more equitable, like in terms of access. So that sounds good.
Well, I think we're, as I mentioned, the numbers ticked up over the last couple of years. So I think this is not the only program that I think we need to look at and determine, like what are we going to operate at this level? Is it important enough we're going to operate at this level? If there's additional cost, is that something that is going to be borne by families? Is that going to be borne by the district? Like those are all the things that we'll look at and determine, where we go. But it's certainly a need, and I think a lot of families, there are communities that don't have this program, right?
Right.
And families have to figure out another way. I think when you have a program and it's making such an impact that this program is making, it's hard to have it almost there but not meeting all the need, right? So I think looking at how it could meet all the need would be a good inquiry to make.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think the goal would be anybody who wants to be in the program, we can let them in whatever way we can look into that. I think especially given it is, at this point, a self-funded program, right? The impact on the finances and the ability to do that. Like we have 25 families who are willing to give the money that is required to go 5 days a week. Like, is that influx of cash enough to hire these extra people? And obviously, if there aren't the people to hire, there's not the ability to do the program. But then I'd wonder, like, are we posting for those positions? Are we looking for them? Again, is it not staffing? Is it space? Like, I think those questions to mind are there. Just from to understand the 25 number, do we know about how many people are enrolled at each site? How many kids are enrolled at each site? I have my sense.
120, 110, 120, 130, something like that.
In the after school and about 60 in the before school.
So it'd be about like a 17% increase in terms of the total number of kids that they'd be overseeing across each site if we allowed everybody in.
I want decimal points with that.
That was some quick math, Mark.
I don't quote me on that. It's just approximate. Yeah, I guess my other question is what is the 25? Obviously, a 1 to 25 ratio of teacher to student, like within a classroom. For many people would think we just have to hire one other person. In an after-school program, that ratio is much less. So you got to hire more. So I just think I don't know if y'all know that number, but what do we generally try and have the staff to student ratio at? How many?
There's a requirement, isn't there, Lynn?
Sure there.
I'm not sure what
I don't know what the ratio is here, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I think even that just, if it's 1 to 7, right, you got to hire 4 more staff members in order to kind of get to that, not potentially even counting maybe additional over.
Also in the after-school program, a large number of the quote-unquote staff are high school students and that are being supervised then by adults to run different things and so forth.
Yep.
So there are always adults there, but I mean, it's one thing to be supervising a class of 10 students, but a class of 10 students who have a high school student or maybe 2 high school students to help them with, you're supervising more people because you have to supervise the high school students too, to some degree. And so there's a lot of different pieces in there. Martha has depended a lot on high school students working for her, especially in the after-school program. It's just, without them, she really wouldn't be able to run the program at all.
Yeah, they're great. She gets some great high school kids.
They are great.
I have a question. I remember hearing something about a course in high school where students who want to become teachers after they graduate, there's a course for them to learn about what the pedagogy styles are and have some practicum experience. Maybe, do we still have these courses available in high school?
No.
That was the preschool.
That was the
program.
child care program. We had a preschool in the high school which was 3 half-days a week for preschool children, and a couple classes of high school students were taking this child study class that were interested in being teachers, and so part of their day was in the classroom, and part of their day, some of their days were in the classroom, and some of their days were in the preschool with the younger kids. That disappeared with space needs and a variety of things like that. Plus, a 3 half-day preschool wasn't terribly attractive to most parents. They really wanted 5 half-days or whole days or things like this, and it just became a very difficult program to actually attract preschoolers into, because it wasn't really an attractive option for most parents.
I'm asking, just thinking about how you just mentioned about how the adults have to supervise the high school students who are working at the after-school program. If we still have something similar for students who wanted to become teachers or maybe interested to be a tutor or babysitter or etc., if they can have the opportunity to learn about that in school and use the skills in the after-school program, then there will be less supervising.
I know that's been mentioned in the context of the land swap and the idea of the campus, that there would be potential with that space to, when housing the preschool program at the campus, to then be able to incorporate that type of opportunity again, whereas right now it's just infeasible with the space issues. So I think that's something good to keep an eye on. Any other questions for Dr. Burrows, or do you have additional updates in back to school? We kind of
That was the no. I left that for the end.
Okay.
Ideally suited right where it needed to be. No, I don't. I mean, I feel like things are moving in the direction they need to. There's, like I said, there's a lot of excitement, and we're going to capitalize on that and create some good energy on Monday and get going.
I have a question. It's just out of curiosity, because I noticed that the high school had orientation for only a couple hours, but the middle school had orientation for 3 days. That was quite long. So I was just curious about, like, is it necessary to be 3 days long?
I think it's, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of the program yet, but I think the methodology behind it is students coming from an elementary experience into middle school cognitively at that age have a lot of apprehension and need more structured time socially to start to connect and feel safe going into middle school, like with that transition. So I think the idea behind that is giving them enough time to really get to know the students that they're going to be going to school with, give them a chance to make connections, and over a couple hours it's really hard to do that. The high school orientation, I think, is more about orienting to the school on an operational level and less on that kind of deeper social level that the middle school students, I think, probably really benefit from.
It seems like such a much bigger, given the way our district is set up, moving from a small elementary school into the big middle school with everybody, even age aside, that's such a bigger change than just going from Pierce up the road to Milton High School, where you're continuing to be with this same kids, and like you're already used to having different teachers for different subjects, for example. You don't, like, that's a lot of the adjustments you've already made for middle school carry forward. I don't know, because my kids are only in elementary school still. I'm
going to jump in just because
Anna can speak to this.
So we just went through Peers Camp this week, which was awesome. Today was the last day. It went from 8 to 2. It's something parents pay for, so it's not like you don't have to do it. It's just there's a session in, I think, in the July or end of June, and then obviously this week. So they basically split them up. They have teachers that they're assigned to, and then the kids are kind of mixed up between all the elementary schools. So it's a really great opportunity for them to like meet other students and do activities. They they do certain activities every day. They get to have lunch together. So it's kind of a nice way to like ease in, I think, because it is like when I went there last year with my oldest, like it was a big school. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can get from one end of the building to the other in 3 minutes or whatever it is, because none of the parents could actually. So we were all terrible at it. So I think that was also really good for them to kind of understand and then figure out, like for parents to like drop off like all of that stuff, like the car lines, walking home for kids, like all of that was really helpful. So yeah.
Good to know.
Yep. It's definitely worth it.
I guess my only other thoughts too, when I heard that, I don't know if I knew it was 3 days, but I know I have heard within the community concerns around that transition, I think to the point you were making, from the small schools into the middle school, and right, how the kids will integrate with each other, and that being a point of concern. And I believe this effort is somewhat newer in the last several years. Like this is not maybe you can correct me. I always look at you.
I thought it was 10 years.
He's the
It's
only
10
one to
years,
look
so
at.
I can't quite recall how long this is.
Welcome to Pierce. It's been quite.
The orientation, the 3-day orientation piece?
It's been quite a while.
Yeah.
Never mind.
According to the
Yeah.
brochure, it says 10 years.
Yeah, it's got to be at least 10 years.
There you
Yeah.
go. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I can share my reflection next year after my kid goes to Pierce Middle School.
Good.
Okay, well, if we don't have more questions about the opening of school, then the next thing that we get to do is approve the student and staff handbooks. Was there anything you wanted to like preface with that, or I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments. This is something that we kind of do every year at the beginning of the start of the school year, approve these handbooks, which then of course all the parents receive and sign. So.
Yeah, every year we go through the handbooks, we update them. Every principal provides feedback, and elementary principals work together on theirs, and updates are made. We do share this with legal counsel too, just to be sure that everything is appropriate and everything that's needed to be covered in there is covered, and then it comes in front of the school committee.
I just noticed that on all 3 handbooks, we just need to update the homeless education liaison under McKinney-Vento Act. So that just needs to be updated. So that's
With the name, yeah.
the only thing.
I know that you,
Do you have to
Yeah.
turn these off and on every time?
well,
don't have to,
that's
no.
what he recommended. Okay, I try to follow directions that people
think
give
you
me,
can
but
just
it's a little awkward.
Listen to them all now.
So
Sorry.
you had mentioned that which I know we really appreciated having more time to review these. They are very long, obviously, and that you had given them to us sort of last week, before they were all like completely finished. So I'm assuming there are a couple, like in Pierce, for example, there was one that was still waiting to confirm if lunch was free per mass, so those technical things, I'm assuming
Those will be-
alike with that name are being
Exactly.
updated and addressed. And so then really what we're here to do is approve like the overall content. And I actually just want to make sure, so if anyone else has anything you want to add, please go ahead and do that. But on our list of motions, we don't have the staff one there.
Yeah, I noticed that too. But we could add that.
But we did receive the staff as an attachment. So that is one of the ones that we're approving, right? Okay.
It mentions staff in the agenda, but not in the motion document. So
Okay. All right, so I'll just, does anyone else have anything
remember
before we make a motion to approve?
I just actually had one question, which was,
Take a look
I
at
think
this.
it was under the absences, like it's a 3-day period before the school contacts parents. Is that pretty standard?
In Massachusetts, I'm not sure if is there a standard?
3 days, are you talking elementary or?
I think it's elementary and middle school.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't think it's high school.
No.
With the high school, they send out something anytime someone's absent. I'm not sure what happens at the elementaries.
Okay. Okay.
well, luckily, that's something Power School
Well, it does.
potentially help with if the old system couldn't.
Yeah.
Well, that is one of the pieces of Power School. When they do attendance, can automatically generate emails or texts or whatever you
Oh, that'll
have
be
put
great,
it
yeah.
to parents to say, so-and-so is absent today. You know, it has that ability.
And then it
Whether
would
we
be
will
in
get
our
that turned
portal
on in the
to
next
see.
week, don't hold me to that, but.
No, because I just wondered, like, if a parent doesn't call in, like, how do you know, or do you kind of go the whole school day until like your kid gets home, right? So I was just curious.
Yeah, I found what you were saying, where it says each principal will notify a student's parents or guardian within 3 days of an absence in the event parent or guardian has not called the school. Yeah. But I don't know if that's
a lot quicker than
Yeah, I would say.
that's happened the same day.
typically there are auto call systems within these things. So
That was it?
had a question just about middle school sports. It's the first time I'd ever seen the listed provided middle school sports, and the list was fairly short. And I know the town has many other really well-run kind of programs, and so maybe that's why they're not done through the middle school. But I didn't know if there was any context there of just no soccer, softball, baseball, which are all pretty popular sports in the town, and not doing that through the school.
You're Look at me again, aren't you?
Of operation. Yeah, I mean,
I will know next year, but I don't know.
Yeah, I know that, track and some of these things have been running in middle school for quite a while, but yeah, middle school sports there have been fewer of them. And I'm not sure exactly the origin of that or why, or are there more people playing in the town leagues and so forth? Less opportunity to play other middle schools on a basis or something like that. I don't know whether it's just the lack of the programs, and not sufficient number of programs at schools in the area to make it viable. I don't know. We have a new athletic director. I mean, it's one of the
These
things.
are really popular sports
Yeah.
that Milton is strong into.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they're either playing on the town has decided to take it on instead of the school, and the town has a strong program with community members running that, or there are so many students doing club sports, like not town-based, but like Metro, FC, Metro, whatever, that most students are doing those and then going right into high school sports probably, but we can definitely find out.
Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons track is so big at the middle school, is because there aren't so many other options to do club track. But I think track has always been, probably the biggest of the middle school sports.
They have that like ski program too, which is pretty popular,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Do you need a motion?
I'm ready to make a motion. I can go ahead. I mean, okay. I'll make a motion to approve the following. We'll do them all together. The 2023-2024 handbooks. So that includes the elementary handbook, the Pierce Middle School handbook, the Milton High School handbook, the Milton Public Schools staff handbook, and the athletic handbook. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, great. That's unanimous. Thank you so much, Dr. Burrows, and looking forward to Monday. And yeah, thanks for all the hard work you've all been doing to keep everything moving towards next week. It's exciting. All right, the next is citizen speak. So I'm not sure if we have anybody present online who...
No one has raised their hand.
Okay, so if you are attending virtually and would like to participate in Citizen Speak, this is the policy we have set aside, up to 15 minutes for members of the community to share their perspective with us, and for up to 3 minutes. So if you'd like to participate in Citizen Speak, please go ahead and raise your hand and we'll elevate you.
There are no raised hands.
Okay. And we don't have anybody in person with us tonight, but you're all welcome to join us. So thank you. And that brings us to the chair's report. And we have 3 items here, which are really just continuations of discussion that began at our school committee summer retreat, which took place over two Wednesdays in late July and early August, where the school committee was joined by Dr. Burrows to sort of do some learning together and begin to, based on that learning that we did, to kind of start to plan for this year in our work. And so the first, we are not actually like voting on any of these items tonight, but we wanted to just create the opportunity to touch base on them again. The 3 things that we're sort of here to talk about include the school committee goals that we will need to set for this new school year, our calendar for school committee meetings, as well as our work in subcommittees and advisory committees. So we'll touch base on those 3 things, just have the opportunity to like see what additional thinking we may have, and then we'll move towards votes to approve some of these items over the next 2 subsequent meetings. So the first thing that we're going to touch on is our goals document, our draft goals. And, you know, I just want to mention, I mentioned the learning that we did, just for the benefit of the community members who, you know, were able to join our open retreat meetings, but people were not there. So this is a chance that we can just kind of share out some of what we did during that time in those open retreat sessions. We read a really helpful book called The Governance Core, which Dr. Burrows had suggested as like a core text for us to just kind of anchor our work around. And it was really informative to provide us with like a framework to inform how we set our goals for our work as a school committee this coming year. I personally really appreciated the collaborative sort of way that we were able to work through that discussion, and just it felt great to kind of thought partner with you, Peter, and all members of the school committee. We were all sort of equally participating and learning from the book, and then able to apply what we were learning to how we were beginning to envision our work together. So I personally really thought that was productive. And one kind of thing about the goal setting then was that it was really collaborative. We were able to identify some key categories that we wanted to focus on. And those were, as we see in our draft, governance, student achievement and well-being, and community engagement. I did my best to consolidate our discussion into this draft of the list. And at this point, I'd just love your all's thoughts. Sort of, what do you think about this draft? I feel pretty good about the fact that it's like concise and fitting on about 2/3 of a page. So I know we came into the process with a goal of being, you know, crisp and like able to really focus what we're trying to do. But I'll stop there. Like, I'm interested in any thoughts that you all have, and we'll just keep, like, to the extent any of you have input or want to help like refine some of these bullets, I can take notes, and then what we'll do is bring this back on September 6th as a document that we can continue to discuss one more time, but then hopefully be able to approve at our next meeting. So, any feedback, input?
It looks great to me.
Yeah, I can share. I agree with Val. I think this is very reflective of what we discussed, and we put it in a very concise way. So, very much appreciate that. My only two thoughts after reflecting on it was one, thinking of like some goal around the space and school building issue. Right, that obviously goes to a very central part of the conversation within the town. The need we know within the school, the impact it's having on kids and staff, and not being really reflected in here. I know in our conversations that is important and a priority and a goal of ours. So like not having it be within this document felt somewhat odd, and I don't know if that then means it has to be a fourth, and then you lose the power of the three. But that was one thing that I wanted to throw out there. And then I guess the only other one, and I shared this in our initial conversations, was just the student achievement and then the social well-being, social emotional well-being pieces being linked versus like splitting those two up. I don't have strong feelings, but I remain with like my thought of just the measurement pieces of both of those being pretty distinctly different in terms of like how we could see if we're doing a good job on those and like how those are improving. How we'd look at student achievement and social emotional support within like the student surveys, the family surveys versus MCAS achievement, interim assessments, whatever else we have within the district. And potentially having those as separate goals in my mind allows you to like evaluate those both on kind of their own merits versus like saying achievement and well-being. Well, we're doing well in one area, but the other area is not doing well, and like maybe one masks the other or something like that. But I think some of the feedback was like, again, wanting to make sure that within the goal, those things are linked, like students achieve when they have strong social emotional support. So wanting to link those within the goal, but just wanted to reshare that thought as I was going through it.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, because I think they are distinctly different, but they are somewhat related, but not necessarily, and I think we need to look at each of them individually. And I agree with the part about the space needs as well, like incorporating that into this, because that will obviously be a huge focus for us this year. I also just wanted to add that just like how informal and comfortable everybody is tonight is like thanks to you and like the retreat the last month that we did, which was really helpful. So I think this is awesome. So it's fun. I could stay here all night.
Hopefully not. It's good to know we could.
So just to follow up a little bit on like how we might potentially refine this to address the pieces that you both just raised, because I hear what you're saying about the, yeah, it's like a pro and a con of combining those two. I totally agree with the idea of naming a goal around space. Like that makes complete sense. I feel like it would even seem to belong under that heading, whether it's, even if it gets separated out. I mean, clearly it's student achievement and well-being, like the space issue is a goal that belongs under that category or set of categories, right? Is that how you think about it? Or would you think about it as its own category of?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about it within that category. I mean, certainly I agree with you, like the space, the whole idea of focusing on space is because we know the impact it has on students' potential ability to achieve to their highest levels within the classroom, because they're not working in ideal spaces, and neither are staff. And you know, the potential effects that also has on social emotional well-being as well. That was not my original thought, but potentially maybe if there are just more clear, I think what you're getting at is like clear sub-bullets that maybe list out potentially like the facility piece, maybe list out like, you know, within the sub-bullets, splitting out more clearly the achievement versus the like achievement goal or social emotional, or like restating those kind of clearly within like our.
So, yeah, I mean, well, it could be like an overall heading of student success or something like that, and then there is academic achievement under that, and there's social emotional well-being under that. I mean, I think where I was going with the idea of the space as a bullet under there, it links to me to the one that's here right now, is securing resources. I mean, that's our job as the school committee, to secure those resources to fully implement the pillars of the strategic plan as identified by the superintendent. And we all know that the space constraint is really impeding our ability to do that. So it's a little bit like implied here, but I agree that we should like be direct about that. I like the idea of linking the space piece to the student success, or however we call it, because that's what it's about. It's not a separate issue, and I think we, in our role, and especially thinking about community engagement as well, like it's important that we can help everybody stay focused on that piece. That like to the extent we just talk about the need for this space, it's because we won't achieve the student success with a continued lack of the space. So,
yeah, that resonates with me. I want to say though, I like your current heading better than student success.
Okay.
Student achievement, well-being, and then.
So keep that heading, but then add a bullet on. Like add a bullet that focuses on achievement, and then another bullet that focuses on SEL.
What do y'all think?
So that seems good, and then it would just mean conceivably we end up with like 5 bullets under this category, which is fine. That's how many we have under governance. You know, so I'm open to that. It will still fit within like 3/4 of a page.
Now, what do you think?
Will it fit on A4 though?
Yeah, I think that would be great. Or is it possible to fit it into the second bullet of the second heading?
Within the secure resources, just like named specifically?
Such as blah, blah, blah.
So that one is, I mean, the way that's currently written, it doesn't talk about academic achievement, but that's, and I guess student outcomes are, yeah, so
Right.
maybe what we should do is and I remember this conversation we had at the retreat, we added that final clause of that sentence. So what about this? What if that bullet, the budget goal, just had a period after superintendent? Like, we have that goal to secure the resources that are needed to fully implement the strategic plan, period. The part that talks about personalized learning, like that's academic, that's what we're talking about, being able to measure achievement, right? So then maybe we could reword that somehow to address that piece, which I remember was the discussion we had, was the desire to have within our goals the naming of, like, ultimately we want our goals to impact outcomes, like that's right. So but maybe what that is just it gets revised into wording about academic achievement, and then we add a new bullet that names a goal of really like supporting that safe and supportive schools pillar.
Yep.
That makes me wonder, would we then need a goal that talks about equity then, if we're like we're basically like calling out 2 of our 3 pillars? I don't know.
Yep.
What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think there's also, this could also be a goal of the facilities advisory too, right?
The
The resource and space goal.
yep.
So, I mean, I'm just thinking if
Whether that needs to be for the whole school committee.
right. It can be,
Yeah, no, I hear you.
or they could be shared by, they could be on, with both.
Yeah, I mean, my only thought of bringing it to like the primary school committee goals is just like it feels like a primary concern amongst the community, right? Amongst families and communities, and as representatives of that, like our time and stated focus being on the things that we know most impact, right, and most support you and y'all's work in, improving student outcomes and student experiences, and B, like responding to the needs that the community has identified for their children that they're sending. So yeah, that's why, just when I read it, I know there was a lot of effort going into that initiative as it relates to schools. And so it felt not stating it within kind of these overarching goals, just felt missing, which is why I wanted to bring it up. But
Could do something where a resource goal that covers both budget and facility space.
I mean, you could just say economic or secure economic and physical resources to support blah, 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 or put your qualifiers in there, what kind of resources you're talking about, because they are all resources. It doesn't have to be just money.
I like the note.
Yeah, that's good. I think I agree with, yes, obviously the Facilities Advisory Committee is most directly working on this. However, I'm only one member of the school committee, so I can't say for all of us. For myself, I feel like we need to make progress on that this year, or my personal opinion is we as a school committee will not have been successful if we don't have something to show that improves that situation in the short term by the end of this year, but at town meeting. So, something, I don't know what it is yet, but something that makes it better. So I do agree, actually, as we're talking this through, that it does feel like something at the level of the full school committee, like we're sort of on the hook to address this, for better or worse. Like, you know, and if we make it a goal with our commitment that we've all made to really like stay in touch with our goals this year, revisit our goals, track our own progress, like I feel like that just builds in some accountability for us to like focus on that and not let it just sit with the facilities advisory committee. As, you know, good as you are, you know, I don't want this to only be hanging on the two of you.
No, I think
that makes sense.
But I like that idea, Glenn, of like connecting it to the resource piece. Like, I don't know, I feel like that makes it feel coherent with the bigger picture of our job around the resources. What I typed here, just if it's okay if we can just spend another couple minutes like wordsmithing this, because the better we do now, the easier it will be to kind of approve this next time. So what I typed here now for that second bullet, so I've kept the heading student achievement and well-being. The first bullet has not changed. That's supporting the superintendent through his entry plan. And what follows there. And that's actually where they're connected. So that's good. You know, that's where it's like to improve student achievement and well-being as connected. The next one I have now, secure, your suggestion was economic and physical resources. I added physical space resources, like, so secure economic and physical space resources that are needed to fully implement the pillars of the strategic plan as identified by the superintendent. So in the next bullet, I could use more help with, because I've kind of put down there focus on personalized learning and what needs to happen for that to more fully impact student outcomes. Do you want to name academic achievement in that bullet? Like, especially Anna and Mark, what would bring that to the place where you would feel comfortable with it?
I actually think of it like personalized learning. I think about providing the resources to the student in order for them to thrive in school. So that including maybe additional academic help, or maybe providing a very up-to-date curriculum for the student to experience what they would be like after they graduate from the high school. So that piece is very open-ended. So to me, it's more like those things that might not be physically that we are looking at right now, but is directly impacting the student outcome. So I don't know how you guys interpret this sentence right there.
Yeah, I mean, the level of the sentence for the school committee to focus on personalized learning, I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah. Right. It's so maybe it's our goal is to monitor. I mean, we need to like identify the action verb of our goal. What is it? Are we monitoring progress on that piece? I mean, are we? Yeah, because we are not doing that work
That's
ourselves,
what I mean,
right?
Maybe it's just taking out, maybe it's actually reconnecting the sentences now that we've added in the physical space resources, and you just take out the focus on personalized learning, what needs to happen to more, and just say like, as identified by the superintendent in order to more fully impact student academic and social emotional outcomes, or just student outcomes in general. Like, I don't know if we want to say in their student achievement and social emotional outcome, like, I don't know. Or we just say again,
then aren't we
more
kind of
fully impact student outcomes.
repeating the first?
Going back to combining them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Maybe just change the second title to student success. Everyone defines success slightly differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I guess I'd suggest I see it's either a combined thing where it's like secure the economic and physical space resources that are needed to fully implement the pillars of the strategic plan, right? We don't need to name each pillar, we're naming them there to take out the issue you were bringing up, where we're naming one or two of the three pillars. So to fully implement the pillars of the strategic plan as identified by the superintendent. So again, all of this is flowing through the superintendent in order to more fully impact student outcomes. Again, still trying to focus on student outcomes. So it's like combining all that into one as you had before, which essentially means like all we've done is we've added in the physical space, and again, we've taken out the naming of like just an individual pillar.
So does that, where does that leave you in terms of the idea of wanting to name each of them separately? I mean,
It does end up combining.
Right.
We're kind of back to
Yep.
combining. I think that's my.
Yep.
I think we could have the goal, have the language you just read out, Mark, and that is a resource goal. Our goal there is securing those resources that support the full strategic plan.
Yeah.
So that, I like that. I'm open to the idea of creating, and it might be just under that, I don't know, this would get a little asymmetrical, but I'm okay with it. We could create sub-bullets if we wanted to really name the pillars in terms of our commitment as a school committee to those. Then what I need to better understand is what, again, is the verb, what are we actually doing with those pillars? That's the key to make sure that these are appropriate goals for us as a school committee. I am, as we're now talking this through, I kind of do think actually if we are going to name two of the three, I think we should name all three.
Yep.
So I think actually maybe what we do is have 3 sub-bullets there where we just state if we want to address them each separately, that we want to, so if we wanted to do that, I think we would just need to work with you, Peter, to arrive at language that is that can do both of those things at the same time, allow us to kind of restate our commitment to those 3 pieces, which include equity in addition to personalized learning and / academic achievement, and safe and supportive schools, or SEL. I mean, what do you?
The one thing I would just mention is one of the things that I think we've recognized is the organization and the community has to catch up to be able to start implementing the pillars of the strategic plan. There's been a lot of, since the plan was created, which it's still pretty young, right? It's still a year old. There really hasn't been an implementation plan hasn't been created thus far that brings together the entire organization and says, okay, to meet these 3 pillars, these are the things we're going to commit to, and here's how we're going to monitor progress, here's how we're going to assess annually and at a mid-year cycle, and here's how we're going to know that we're making progress or not. So the one thing that, just thinking about the school committee goals and what's happening over the course of this year, my analysis is that the system as a whole doesn't need more inputs going into it in terms of initiatives. And one of the things that's come out of a lot of conversations I've had and out of the retreat was initiative fatigue. So that's just one thing I want to mention as we're looking at this. Not to say that the school committee couldn't, I think, express something in terms of a support for and kind of keeping those three pillars in a kind of a visionary way as we move forward this year, and essentially organize the work. Because that kind of is what this year is organizing, so that we can make really big strides as we go forward.
Select grammatical point. As identified by the superintendent, it's not the strategic plan, it's the resources. So it should be the resources as identified by the superintendent that are needed to fully implement the pillars of the strategic plan. And at that point, if you wanted to name the pillars of the strategic plan, you could say colon A, B, and C. If naming them is what you wanted to get in there, you could name them at that point without getting into the verb of what you would tend to do about them.
Right.
Right?
So
if you move that phrase up to where the English teacher would tell you it belongs.
Yeah. It's obviously been
And
a
even
while
math
since I was
teacher
an
once
English
in a
teacher. Okay, so secure economic and physical space resources. And would that even be like financial resources? Is that financial or
Whatever adjective you want in there, financial,
that might
economic, whatever.
be more clear for people?
Could be
Okay, so financial and physical space resources as identified by the superintendent
that are fully needed.
That are needed to fully implement.
That are needed to fully.
that are needed to fully implement the pillars of the strategic plan.
I think we should just leave it there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's getting too wordy.
What if in the future the superintendent decided that the pillars is renamed, then we don't have to like come back and edit the document.
We'll redo goals every year. In terms of your point, would it make sense to take the first bullet and
I would
write
split
and
the first
it?
two. Yeah.
So then it's just like essentially saying, because then to your point, if both of these are like, again, part of the entry plan, creating a coherent vision related to these things. Like there's a coherent vision around student academic achievement and a coherent vision around student well-being and student wellness, which are obviously integrated and supportive of each other.
And I like adding academic in there, just so there's clarity on what that achievement looks like.
Student academic achievement
Yeah.
in the heading and the goal.
Yeah.
Okay. So, are you all looking? No.
No, I'm not.
The old documents.
Oh, you're in the
Someday,
on the
Peter's on the same
okay.
document I'm in.
someday,
We don't have access to
I'm
it.
just gonna.
I don't
say that-
know. This is the PDF file.
We can aspire to a time when we can all, in the context of a deliberation, which is what this is, we can be like working in a document together. Is that true? So
Open meeting, yeah.
I'll make sure. So sorry, that's why I'm like I want to read these out so that, because you can't see what I'm trying to write here. So the changes we just made were, our first bullet is the same, except we've added academic achievement.
And removed. So the way I thought was essentially take this whole thing, copy and paste, and then one of them though says student academic achievement, the other says student well-being. Essentially taking
Got
out the
it.
and
Okay.
and creating two separate bullets based upon instead of the and, which lengthens it but separates the items.
So we're now going to have the first two goals I see are both about our work to support you through your entry plan
Yeah.
to do that Okay,
Then the financial physical space resources.
so then that stays, and then we can get rid of this idea of sub-bullets. Don't,
Yeah, we take out that as identified by the superintendent there.
yeah,
We were
yeah,
going to take
yeah.
out even also in order to more fully.
Yeah, okay. So, okay, and so then that leaves me with my last question about, is it, I don't really, I mean, I'm really interested in what people think. We've not, we know that equity is the third pillar. We've not named it anywhere in these goals. I mean, almost similar to the space thing, to me, that if we're going so far as to like, which I think we should be doing, be clear that we're supporting the superintendent on these, should we have one that advances equity, like in the context of the strategic plan too. Because then that does also, as we're working through this, it starts to feel like a little bit of like an omission if we don't
Yeah, so we're not
have that word anywhere.
specifically stating any of the three pillars, but our general thinking is that the student achievement, academic achievement one is really supporting the personalized learning, right? The student well-being is safe and supportive schools. And so, I mean, because,
I see what you're saying, okay.
another one.
I think we're missing the accountability piece of our job as a school committee, is to make sure that all the plans goes as what we hope it would be, right? According to this governance core book, that's one of our main job, is the accountability piece. So we need to have one goal that says about evaluate programs with solid data.
Well, I mean, I think that the way we've gone about this is support the superintendent is sort of, well, the way I think about that is we are here to support the superintendent to help ensure your success in achieving your entry plan, which if you achieve your entry plan, if you execute your entry plan, then we will see those outcomes. We will be evaluating the superintendent on how successfully he does that, basically. I mean, we haven't gotten to talking yet about the evaluation process, but that's more or less what we are going to be doing, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't consider the evaluation. I agree with you. The evaluation is a critical component of the work, but not that needs to be a stated kind of like goal for the current school year. That is just like an inherent part of the job of the work, and then the evaluation is our ability to, at the end of the year, how well did we as a school committee meet these goals? How well did the superintendent help enact these goals? If these are kind of the directions we are trying to provide Peter, of saying like, hey, we want you to make sure you're thinking about this, and this, and all the things that he's already pushing through. So to me, it's making it explicit for us, so that we can come back at the end of the year and do that evaluation as you talked about, and also again make it very clear for Peter in these conversations to say like, this is something we want you to be looking at. So later down the line, we're not like, why didn't you do this? And to say like evaluation of programs is just so broad, like what particular programs, and I think it's challenging for a brand new superintendent who hasn't implemented any programs personally. So those are my thoughts.
So, okay, we've made a lot of progress. What do we think, though, about that question? I mean, you seem to just be pointing out that we've we've not named the pillars. We've gestured towards them. We've not named them using the terminology of them. So what do you think about that idea, or any of you, about whether we would?
Could we add a third bullet under the social emotional well-being one that speaks to equity as well? Would that kind of?
I think that would do what I'm thinking about.
Because we're not directly naming it, but it kind of associating it with that, and then we touch on the pillars at the end, which is kind of, okay, we need the space and financial resources to make all this happen, but we're not naming the pillars. So I guess.
So within that second bullet around like student well-being, naming, like adding within there.
Or even giving it its own bullet if we wanted to go that route. I'm fine with that. But maybe it's using other words to describe it versus like writing, like equity and learning. Just like we did with the others. Just kind of explaining what those are. I think sometimes, to your point, like personalized learning, like, it's kind of ambiguous too, right? Like we haven't quite. So.
What do you think?
I think if you want to feel like you're being true to the three pillars and you're worried about it, I'm not concerned that the school committee is not going to be focused on those pillars, and I think what's laid out here speaks to, a lot of the issue with having equity as a pillar separate from the other things is challenging, because a lot of these other moves are equity moves, right? Or equity work. So I think that's already stated in places here, but I think if you wanted to just, if you're feeling like you want to share with the community and overall that we continue to be committed to and are going to assess progress on the three pillars, you could just make a simple statement like that saying, we'll continue to monitor progress on the three pillars and state the three pillars.
What if, so we could do that. That would bring us more in line with, like, I think what you were just saying. Before you just said that, as you were talking though, what I was thinking was, actually that has been my personal, which I've stated back when we approved the strategic plan, my issue with it is the idea that equity is its own separate thing. So actually, as we're talking about it, to me, it probably might make the most sense to just add the word equitably to equitably improve student academic achievement and to equitably improve student social and emotional well-being. Because that is, the equity is not, that's what the equity piece is. It is those two pieces just for every student. So what do you think about that idea?
I was thinking, I agree completely. I was thinking of putting it after coherent and equitable plan, but I probably like your location of equity better.
Okay.
I like that too.
Okay, so then I think the last thing we have to decide is just with what you just said, the monitor piece. Do we want to add in? I feel like that could start to be redundant. I have a broad definition of support. To me, that includes that. I don't know what the rest of you think. If you want to get a little more granular on that, it could be support and monitor the superintendent's progress toward, but I don't want to I don't want to make it I think what, under governance, our first goal we named was build a collaborative relationship with the superintendent. So I think I would like to not build in a tone that's overly compliance driven in a way.
I think that's also kind of understood, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what we do.
Yeah,
right?
I think so. I mean,
It's your main job.
I'm with you. I don't, just my feeling, I don't have a strong belief that we need to have another bullet that just essentially renames the strategic plan.
I
or
only
the
suggested
three
it
pillars.
because you seemed like you kept coming back to wanting to state the 3 pillars.
so, okay, so I think it seems like we can bring this to a pause. We are going to have another opportunity unless, or you have final chance to like weigh in with additional things, but like, we are going to discuss this one more time, like also with Bev and Selena here, so that'll be good because then they'll be able to understand these revisions that we just made together on that middle piece. Does anyone have any other?
Did you add the equitable piece?
I did.
Okay.
I didn't add mine, and you're looking at the one we're on. She's not on.
Why are you in a different one?
I was like, wait,
We're on different. I'm sorry. I don't.
It's because you're on an iPad. I mean, Apple device.
Anna is
Oh, you
too.
are too. I don't know.
Yeah, we just got the accreditation.
yes, because
It's
only your
fine.
name pops up.
Yeah, see,
The high school.
you're Anna and Val all on it.
Yeah.
So here's, okay, we,
Just you just look at mine and type. Make sure that reflects what you
Okay,
have.
I'll just send it to you.
I didn't track changes. That's the issue.
If you refresh the page, it should show up.
No, she's got a whole different thing. She's got.
okay, so this is my fault, and I apologize. I'm just on the wrong document.
Okay.
What I'm gonna do, because I tracked changes because I was trying to be able to let Selena and Bev follow along with
Yep.
what we actually changed.
Smart.
So what I'm gonna do, but I'm pretty sure I have it as we all just talked through. So I'm going to somehow transfer this into the one that we all see. So that for our next meeting, that will be the version that we look at together. And that will be the starting place for the kind of final round of discussion.
Okay.
But thank you all for taking the time to talk through that, because I feel like we just got it a lot better. All right. So can we transition to the next piece? The next piece is the calendar. So we looked at our retreat, we looked at our calendar, we kind of talked together about that, you know, ideally we want our calendar of our school committee meetings to support our goals, to support the entry plan, the strategic plan, to feel aligned. The calendar will continue to just be a working draft. Obviously, it can be like updated and changed as we go. But I do gather that we also have to approve it. Is that true?
Not in my experience.
Okay.
I thought it's already
Well, good,
published.
because that seemed kind of weird that we would have to do that. So, all right. Then I guess what we set up, because we calendared that we would discuss it today and on September 6th, and this is our time that we're trying to kind of like get it as good as we can. Does anyone have thoughts on it at this point?
So we are meeting, the Central Office Leadership Team is meeting next week, and in our last meeting we talked about all individually looking at the calendar
Yeah.
and from our perspective positions, and then coming back together and talking about and reflecting on the school committee's goals, looking at what the most meaningful kind of presentations and curricular deep dives and all the other things that we talked about bringing
That
to the
deep
school
learning
committee
piece.
makes sense,
Okay.
over the course of the year, looking at it and aligning it with the budget process, with the site council presentations that are already on a number of those meetings. So looking at all of those things and trying to create like a strong year where there's continuity between presentations and it's like I said, it's impactful in ways that we want it to be. So that we're going to meet next week. So I would have that information for our next meeting.
September 6th.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. That's great. At this time, let's see, the one kind of key change that was just in our control as a school committee, not necessarily like in collaboration with central office leadership team, was this idea of having added in essentially quarterly, what we were calling governance discussion / workshop meetings, which, as you kind of alluded to, Anna, since we experienced in our retreat how constructive it was to just sort of be in conversation without a action agenda of like the typical things. Do those dates, as far as people know, work? I know you said they
Yeah, they're just not reflected in the Milton School Committee calendar that was shared as a part of the materials. So on the shared, which I think maybe is what is the difference within that other document, in the shared drive folder.
Right.
Under today's meeting, which I really appreciated. Helps me from downloading and then creating myself.
I'm seeing it.
Yeah,
okay. So I'll follow up with Charlene to make sure these changes get reflected. Because I actually think I'll follow up with her about that. Just for us here, let's table it. Let's just talk about it on September 6th. Yeah. But I think the goal would be that we can say after September 6th, like those are dates that we're committing to, so then we can just hold them I'm selfishly wanting to hold them on my own calendar. So if we're saying we're doing them. All right, but any other thoughts on the calendar at this point? We'll just bring it back when you can share some of that input, which sounds great. Okay, the last piece, this will be, I think, pretty quick, but this part is more or less like an update for the community as in the reporting sense of our retreat, because this will also be a topic that we return to in future meetings. But the third piece under this chair's report was the subcommittee advisory committees piece. And just to kind of provide the update that and give us a chance to touch base on this in case people have additional thoughts. But what we talked about was the idea of revisiting which advisory committees we have in terms of like their function, their sort of like how they work, with the really a goal which we have named in our goals here about trying to gain coherence and be strategic with our advisory committees. So for the community, I think people understand, but it's worth like clarifying that the school committee has two standing subcommittees, finance and policy, and those two subcommittees are comprised of school committee members. And those are important subcommittees that meet frequently and do work of the school committee that then comes up to the full school committee. So those are not changing. Those are just existing as they have been. What we revisited together was the advisory committees, which are very different. Like there's a wide range of them and they kind of have different purposes and compositions. And so I just to kind of consolidate where I think we ended up with that and then see what additional thoughts you all have. We did talk about, and by the way, like obviously, we're going to move towards a vote on this decision. I do understand that we need to kind of formally vote on which subcommittees and advisory committees we have for this this coming up year. But obviously, like, as that gets formalized, any changes, we will be in contact with members of these advisory committees to help them understand if there's going to be a shift of any kind. So if I'm about to like provide some updates on certain committees that might be news to people, like nothing has been formally determined yet. This is just like a conversation that we've been having. So one thing we talked about was the Curriculum and Instruction Advisory Committee, that we kind of discussed the idea that the content of those advisory committee meetings seemed to be really relevant to like the full school committee in terms of the goals we were just talking about. So we kind of talked about, I think that's what you were referencing in terms of the reports that would be brought to the full school committee, like bringing those rather than an advisory committee that sort of summarizes those back to the full school committee, that some of those would just become things that we all have an opportunity to learn about. And so that would be a change there. We talked about the strategic planning committee, just the idea, and I know that the two members who've served on that last year and coming up are, not here right now, so we won't go deeply into it, but the idea that, it's a cycle and we are now like fully in implementation mode of the strategic plan. We're no longer in like strategic planning mode. So the advisory committee has been extremely useful, like over many years now, in helping us develop strategic plans and deliver strategic plans. And now that the focus is on implementation of the plan, it makes sense that the monitoring of that progress really belongs with the superintendent. And that progress should be tracked for the full school committee on that, but not necessarily, like, it just left us all kind of feeling like the time, it's time to kind of bring closure to the Strategic Planning Advisory Committee as it has been. And that doesn't mean we won't still seek community input in an advisory way, but I don't know. That was just the thinking as I understood it of our discussion. The last one I think we talked about was health and wellness, because that will continue to exist as an advisory committee, but I think we recognize that we need to potentially rethink what the work of that advisory committee is. It's important to have town input through that advisory committee. It's important to be partnering with the Milton Coalition, which that is one opportunity and way we do that. But, I think that's very much, I understand it's like in flux. We need to figure out and Peter, you'll help us figure out how that makes sense under your purview. Anything I missed there, in terms of that conversation? Again, just our goals are to streamline the advisory committees, to make sure that when we are holding meetings of advisory committees, that they are vital meetings to be having, that they're a good use of everybody's time, and that they are serving the broader coherence, not what you were kind of talking about before, where we have some siloed work happening. So I'll stop there. Don't know if anyone has anything you want to add. Okay, so
I think you said that very well.
we'll keep
Summarize it very well.
we'll keep talking about it. I mean, we want to be transparent. We want to be transparent, like with any changes like this that we're thinking about making. And yeah, we'll just circle back on that topic. So I think where we ended up with that is we'll bring a proposal. I think, Peter, we said that we were going to work on that with Selena and bring a proposal for us to consider to our next meeting, or it may be to the following meeting. But either way, we'll all have something to kind of respond to in writing, and then we can go from there with any changes, whatever changes we may end up wanting to make. Okay, so that, I think, just brings us to finance and some vendor warrants. Mark?
Great. Finance, we have not met, but we do have some warrants to approve. So I will make a motion. I will make a motion to approve the following. Vendor warrant number 48, payable on June 15th, 2023, in the amount of $354,724.65. Vendor warrant 50, payable on June 29th, 2023, in the amount of $1,166,273.82. Vendor warrant 51, payable on June 28th, 2023, in the amount of $259,989.20. Vendor warrant 52, payable on June 30th, 2023, in the amount of $95,160.93. Vendor warrant 1, payable on July 13th, 2023, in the amount of $291,538.34. And vendor warrant 3, payable on July 27th, 2023, in the amount of $159,032.59.
Second.
I just had, and if we could get like a list of like who we're
About.
paying would be great.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I know you
I
guys
agree.
haven't met yet, but like
Yeah.
once you start meeting, it would be great. Thank you.
Very much agree.
Okay.
Do I call? Great. Do I call? I don't know if I do this for you. All right. All in favor?
Yes.
Great. Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, so approval of minutes. Let's see, I think we were all present at both of these meetings, correct? So we should be able to approve them with one motion.
The only thing is, we have copies of the minutes from the August meeting, because once
don't
again, I
think
didn't see that in the
So
folder.
they were as an attachment to her email. It was a PDF attachment. But we can also pull those and do them next time.
It was the August 18th
August.
email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the minute is for June 14th.
There should be one more in there.
This one is the student athlete handbook.
It's the original email that was sent. The student athlete handbook came as
Yeah. But
Yes, okay. I found it.
look, 1, 2,
I'm happy to vote on it, just
Yeah,
one
so
second.
if we want to just take a couple minutes, it's
is it
like
this
when-
one? Oh, this one.
it's an email that had 8 attachments.
It's called, School Committee Meeting, August 23rd. is the title.
And then the document is August 2nd, 2023, school
I
committee.
found it.
Or 2 minutes. Okay, so we'll just take a couple minutes for people to be able to read.
Sorry about that.
That's fine.
So that's, I was stuck in my old ways, and I was working off the document that was the attachment to the email, not in the Google.
Right, right.
And we don't actually need, actually, if we have the folder, we shouldn't get attachments to the emails anymore. That could be
Right.
confusing.
Yeah. It's just a lot easier. Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
all in the folder.
Uh-huh.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Sorry about that. I was muted. All I was saying was we were just finding the minutes in the in the attachments.
Thrilling stuff. I'm fine too.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any comments or edits to either set of minutes? Okay. Well, then in that case, I'll make a motion. Oh no, I lost my motion. Paige, do you have
can
it?
make it.
Okay, thanks.
Make a motion to approve the Milton School Committee meeting minutes for June 14th, 2023 and August 2nd, 2023.
I
Second, okay.
second.
All right,
All in favor?
great. We passed those minutes. Great, thanks, everybody. So that just brings the next meeting agenda items. So we're going to have additional back-to-school updates, having actually started school, which will be great. We're going to continue the school committee goals discussion. Hopefully we'll get to vote on our goals.
Calendar.
We'll revisit our calendar. We will review, I have on here, we'll review a draft cover sheet for the superintendent evaluation process. And then, is there anything else?
In the master schedule,
Yeah.
it says spring 2023
Data presentation? Is that still
I don't
happening?
believe we'll have, do you know if we'll have all of our data by then?
Six. We can do it next time, September 20th.
I think our data people are doing nothing but Power School at the moment.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
How's that
ask them
going?
this week, but
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I don't think it's been
wouldn't
publicly
say
released.
words.
Yeah.
You've missed a lot of their own deadlines, Jesse has, on releasing.
so I can confirm with the
Okay.
data team, and then when we meet to agenda plan, we can either keep that or move it to the next one.
That makes sense. As of right now, September 20th looks
Empty.
much like less packed, you know. So, I mean, I know it looks like we're talking about the advisory and subcommittees again at that point. So we'll just hear from you as you figure it out. It's fine.
That's great.
Does that spring data presentation include like MCAS as well? Okay.
Cool.
Okay. Any other agenda items for the next meeting? You'll let us, probably not for the next meeting, but going forward, you'll tell us if there are things that are going to get slotted in.
Absolutely.
Okay. Great. Well,
Finance will have met not by the next meeting, but by the one after, so.
September
I have a,
20th.
By the 20th, so I have the end of year quarterly summary, but I haven't given it to finance yet, which is why you haven't seen it, so. As
Okay.
soon as they see it, that'll come forward here. We'll probably by the 20th have an initial pass on breakdown of the 24 budget. I mean, we had a proposal that was approved by town meeting, but we've got to break it into an actual budget for this year. with the actual staff and et cetera. And I've got to, I should have that by the 20th because I've got to get it into the town's accounting system.
FY '25,
24,
24, sorry.
actual budget, yeah.
Actual budget. That's right, I remember now, okay. So, and then school building committee, facilities?
We just had we'll have an update for next meeting on we just had the meeting today, just before this one, the Facility Advisory Committee.
Great.
And then I'm sure myself or Dr. Miranda can provide a SPC update on the recent meeting. Any recent meetings? Do we want, for the September 20th, to put anything about moving back to the transportation or the community schools conversation, given that we're saying at that point we might know more about where things land with the wait list?
Sure,
It's
I
gonna be
mean,
a packed
maybe
meeting.
we'll just like see how it's going, like, and you can keep us informed in your updates. Just since there's like obviously the standing superintendent's update, so.
The other thing that I'm working on that we've discussed is a monthly report.
Okay, yeah.
And that is going to start in October. That will be from the central office leadership team and from principals. And the goal is to provide meaningful information about the work that's happening at the school level and at the central office level in a written form to the school committee on a monthly basis.
Cool. It looks like we have a policy meeting scheduled for September 14th, so we might have an update for that as well on the 20th.
Great, okay. Okay, so yeah, I'll follow up and reconcile these versions of the calendar for us. And great, well, 9:01.
Woohoo!
So, I guess I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? Great. Thanks, everybody.
Right.
Awesome.
Congratulations, Dr.